What's going on YouTube? It's TH back again with another video, and today we're talking about the Dallas Cowboys in our season preview series, and hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, be sure to hit that like button, help me out a ton. And if you're new around here, want to see the rest of this series, more football content in general, just hit that big red subscribe button. And tell me what you think about the Cowboys down below in the comment section. Do you think this team can get back into the playoffs? Do you think they can get a playoff win? How many wins do you think this team comes away with? Some X factors and some games you're looking forward to watching this team play. Love to have your thoughts, and I respond to just about every comment, so let's talk about the Cowboys down below. We'll, again, kind of hit on what I'm going for in each and every topic, but if you missed any of this series so far and kind of want a deeper understanding of what I'm really trying to explain when I talk about X factors, games to watch, win range, etc., go back and check out some of our previous videos so far in this series. But let's waste no more time and jump into a win range of 9 to 12 wins. 10 wins is my prediction in the NFC East regular season predictions video. Had them come in second, but they ultimately did make the playoffs as the 7th seed. I'll again be updating that one final time before we get into the regular season, and we'll see if that continues to be the case. But right now I have them as a very borderline playoff team at 10-7. This team could certainly go even beyond that, or honestly, I could see regression taking this team a step back, right? So we'll kind of go position group by position group. I love Dak Prescott. If he's healthy, and especially if he's, first half of the year, first 10 weeks of last year, Dak Prescott, you're in great hands there. Zeke Elliott gets a lot of big bad rap, and that's because he makes a lot of money, but he's still a solid running back. And then Tony Pollard's an awesome compliment off of that and a more efficient runner. So that's kind of part of where their financial troubles have come from, is, they could get cheaper at that position, but at this point, it's all guaranteed money for Zeke, so it's going to be at least, till the end of this season before they can think about moving on from him or anything like that. So, good running backs, but that is part of the financial troubles this team hit this offseason, which took a detrimental turn against the wide receiver room, having to move on from Amari Cooper. But you still have CeeDee Lamb, who is awesome and can play inside and out. But if they continue to play him from the slot, we'll talk about Jalen Tolbert later on, their third-round pick out of Southern Alabama. But then once they get Michael Gallup back, they have two guys who can run that vertical route tree, can work on the outside, and keep CeeDee Lamb in the slot, where I think he'll get a lot of awesome, favorable matchups and be able to pepper the football in his direction. So he goes with some versatility, but in an ideal world, I think you'd have Tolbert and Gallup on the outside with Lamb, tearing up defenses from the slot. And the offensive line, still kind of going through some, repairs and whatnot. We'll see what Terrence Steele, a lot of Cowboys fans are very high on him as a right tackle. I thought it was a position where they could potentially improve, but they ultimately decided to roll out with him at right tackle, and it's a big catalyst for why they moved on from Lyle Collins. Zach Martin is one of the best right guards in the league. Tyler Biadasz is fine, I guess, as a center. Tyron Smith at left tackle will jump and come back to Tyler Smith, the rookie, but Tyron Smith last year when he was out in the field, which he still missed some time, but saw the field more than we had in the past couple of years, and he was kind of returned to form. He was, Pro Bowl, all-pro level Tyron Smith, which if that happens again this year, that is huge for this offensive line, that bookend tackle spot. But then you add in Tyler Smith, first-round pick, who was one of the picks I got right in my last mock draft, and it just kind of made a lot of sense, felt like a Cowboy, and great in a couple of different ways where they had a hole at left guard. He fills that role right away, but it also allows him to get out on the field, get real-world experience, and then eventually, maybe 3 years' time, before the end of his rookie contract, I would assume, he'll take over for Tyron Smith at left tackle. So it kind of fit that situation perfectly, so that's, I'm not patting myself on the back too hard, but I did get that right in my mock just because the situation lined up, and I'm excited to see, yes, he's raw, but unbelievable athlete. The Cowboys have had a good offensive line for a better part of, a decade, maybe even more now, so I feel confident that coaching staff will be able to coach up Tyler Smith. Switching sides of the ball, we'll talk about some of these guys, but right now, opposite of Tank Lawrence, who's a good football player, you have Dorrance Armstrong, you got Dante Fowler Jr., Sam Williams, who I liked coming out of Ole Miss, but is he going to be able to step up and provide right away? So that's why we'll talk about Jabril Cox later on, because I think it's going to be a lot of Micah Parsons as that other edge opposite of Tank Lawrence, which that duo, awesome, and DeMarcus Lawrence does a pretty good job against the run, and that kind of allows Micah Parsons to be solely focused on getting the quarterback, which when you're that good of an athlete, and he hasn't really learned all the true pass rush, how to use his hands, how to leverage linebacker, offensive lineman. He hasn't really gotten all the technique and the finite details down. He's just an unbelievable athlete who just moves like nobody else. So had a ton of success his rookie year getting to the quarterback, and I would expect we're going to see a whole lot of that this year. They're still trying to figure out what that interior of the defensive line looks like, but that's been a position group, especially against the run, where they've been a little soft, and again, we'll come back to that with Jabril Cox later on. I'm interested about this linebacker group outside of Micah Parsons. LVE, 1 year, $3 million deal, very much a prove-it contract, so what does he do in this, call it winner go home type of career situation he finds himself in. And then Jabril Cox, 4th round pick from last year's draft, not 2022, but 2021. And we'll talk about him later on. And the secondary is an interesting one. Anthony Brown, who, again, we'll talk about in the X Factors, but he's been getting a ton of love throughout training camp. Jordan Lewis, fine in the slot. Trevon Diggs is kind of the talking point when you talk about the Dallas Cowboys secondary. I don't think he's in for 11 interceptions again this year. Just, natural regression there. That's a tough number to duplicate. Cornerback play and coverage is kind of variable, year to year anyways. So that amount of turnovers I don't see likely to have hit again. But that being said, I also think Trevon Diggs is still a guy who's maybe, 3-4 years into playing the cornerback position. Former wide receiver, obviously the related brother to Stephon Diggs, so bloodline from there, but he's still learning the cornerback position. There's no reason to think he can't improve in coverage. So where you might see a step back in turnover, numbers, I think you'll see a step forward in, his average, his actual coverage stats, targets, catches allowed, yards given up, touchdowns, those sorts of things. So I think you'll see regression one way, but I also am a believer in his talent, and as he gets more and more comfortable playing corner, and working with Dan Quinn, I think those coverage stats will improve. And then this safety position is really interesting. Is Malik Hooker going to be that starting, free safety? And Jaron Kearse was a really nice, player. You get him down to the line of scrimmage. He can blitz. So a really nice strong safety they found there. And he's back after being a free agent this offseason. So really it's that free safety spot. What is it, Malik Hooker? Is it someone else? So how does that position play out? But that will kind of do it for the position overview. I do like this roster, and I'm not entirely sold on Mike McCarthy, but I do like both the coordinators and Dan Quinn and Kellen Moore. Go back and check out my potential head coaching candidates for next head coaching carousel. You'll see both their names on there. So moving on, realistic goal is what it sounds like. Reach goal is what it sounds like too. You had those colleges you applied to where maybe you weren't totally hitting all the qualifications or the job, or you don't hit all the requirements, but you still send the application anyways just to say, hey, what the heck? It's definitely a no if you don't try. So reach goal is kind of that thinking, but realistic goal, get back to the playoffs. They were in the playoffs last year. While I do think this team has regressed both offensively and defensively, I still think there's reason to believe this is a playoff caliber team. I have them as a 7 seed in my way too early, regular season predictions. So then moving on to the reach goal, this is where, I have talked about this and it feels like it is very top loaded. Even the next team, the Denver Broncos in the series, similar type of goal here where there's probably 2 handfuls of teams, and it feels like they're all at the beginning of the alphabet, unfortunately, because I've been saying this reach goal a ton, but win the division. They'd be the first repeat NFC East division, winner since 2004, and then win a playoff game. So I think there's a couple handful of teams that are Super Bowl competitive, and I don't know if I'd necessarily put the Cowboys in there, but I could totally see the argument for where they should be. So like Denver, I have that goal, and I'm kind of spoiling that video ahead of time, but the reach goal is to win a Super Bowl. I think the Cowboys, you could probably lump them into that. I have them just outside of that, and that's because of the regression in the offensive defense. And realistically, I think last year I saw them, and not realistically, but I mean, I did see them as a Super Bowl contender last year. Now, granted, the end of the regular season wasn't pretty, and then obviously they get bounced in the first round by the 49ers, but that's a good 49ers team. And, if they just had more momentum and kind of had more things, if they were playing their perfect brand of football, I think that team had a shot. But, with the regression this year, I'm not entirely sold that they'll be, Super Bowl competitive. Playoff competitive for sure, but Super Bowl competitive, maybe not so much. So, become the first repeat division title winner since 2004, and then win a playoff game. Win a playoff game. That is always it's always the talking point for the Cowboys once you get into the postseason. Well, now they're here. Are they actually going to be able to do it? It's been a big monkey on their back. They've been able to do it a couple times, but still their winning percentage over the last 2 decades in the playoffs has not been pretty. Moving on to X Factors now. So again, this is not superstar players. We should expect, CeeDee Lamb to be a stud. We should expect Dak Prescott to be a beast. And we should expect Micah Parsons to be all over the field. These are guys who I think, if they hit the upside of variance, they can improve this team's potential and outlook for the season. But if they fall short of expectations, the team may well disappoint because of that. So we'll start with, I don't like putting rookies on here, but we'll start with the rookie Jalen Tolbert. And part of his inclusion is you could put a slash line here and say Michael Gallup too, but he's on the PUP list, so he'll miss the beginning of the season, barring something crazy. But Jalen Tolbert, especially with Michael Gallup being hurt, he's being asked to be that number 1 guy on the outside. Now, CeeDee Lamb can play inside and out, so that gives him a little bit of flexibility. But when they move CeeDee Lamb inside of the slot, Jalen Tolbert is the guy on the outside, especially with James Washington going down with an injury. He's out 6 to 10 weeks. So it really is Jalen Tolbert having to prove himself at the beginning of the year. Can he stick? Can he hold on? Loved him as a prospect. I thought day 2 was his right range. 3rd round felt a little light. I was definitely thinking mid to late 2nd round. Goes up and wins the catch point. May not be the 6'3" size that he was listed out on South Alabama website, but still 6'1", good physicality, and a solid vertical route tree runner. So Has a lot of skill sets that you're looking forward to play on the outside. It feels like a nice compliment to CeeDee Lamb. Does a little bit of everything, but he'll have to produce right away, and that's always a tough challenge to ask a rookie to do. Then moving on to Jabril Cox, who he did not play last year after being a 4th-round pick, but this was a guy who I easily saw as a day 2 prospect, 2nd, 3rd-round guy. Becomes one of the first picks of the 4th round, and it was at a time where it's like, all right, well, Dallas already drafted an off-ball linebacker in the 1st round. They just signed Keanu Neal to play off-ball linebacker instead of safety. They still have Leighton Vander Esch, and at the time they still had Jalen Smith. So I was like, what is going on here? We're going from Jalen Smith, LVE's back, no longer Keanu Neal. So there is a much clearer line to the field and path to the field for Jabril Cox. So this is going to be the chance for him to shine. And he was one of those guys from LSU, and you don't want a helmet scout, but similar enough to Patrick Queen, really good athlete. I'm interested to see how that conversion from college to the NFL goes for a guy like Jabril Cox, because it's just such a difficult position to play, and especially considering how much teams are relying on zone coverage and need linebackers to be a factor in coverage in general. And those guys get picked apart. And I mean, that's where it's really hard to kind of gauge how good is a Devin White, how good is a Devin Bush. Those types of guys, how good are they? Because they're also the guys getting picked on by opposing offenses with mismatches. And I think the same thing will happen with Jabril Cox. But the big thing is he has got to be able to show he can be competent, league average. Because when they do rotate, like I said earlier, I think you're going to see a whole lot of Micah Parsons down on the edge. So when they rotate him down to put his hand in the dirt, and he's getting after the quarterback, it's Leighton Vander Esch, who's had his fair share of injury concerns, so there's no guarantee he's out on the field. But if he is, it's him and Jabril Cox in that nickel package. Say there's 2 linebackers out there. They're the 2, assuming Micah Parsons is, moving to edge rusher on that certain play in this hypothetical situation. So he's going to see the field, and he's going to have a big-time role. So how does he handle that responsibility? And if Leighton Vander Esch gets hurt, even bigger of a task on his plate. So fascinated to see how he handles, his first real opportunity to get out on the field and showcase what he's got. So very interested to see what Jabril Cox does this year. Liked him a lot coming out of LSU. I think the Cowboys got good draft value, but still nonetheless, I saw him as a day 2 guy, missed his entire rookie season. So how quickly can he find his footing and hit the ground running and become an impact type of player at a position that is, quietly gone from they have too many resources compiled in that spot to where, okay, well, if Micah Parsons rushing the passer, who's really going to be the standout or really just the guy they can rely on in that off-ball linebacker spot. Moving on to Anthony Brown, I hit on it earlier. This dude is getting some huge training camp love, and from the coaching staff, from beat reporters. That's all interesting. Now, some of the times that's based around you're trying to hype up. Like I'm a Steelers fan, so you're seeing a bunch of hype and love for Mason Rudolph's accuracy. I think that's because they're trying to trade him. I don't think the Cowboys are trying to move on from Anthony Brown, so maybe he's just found a different gear that he hasn't been able to play at so far in his career, but he plays a massively important position because, if offenses are going to be afraid of, Trevon Diggs, and, maybe Diggs does come away with another double-digit type of interception production this year. If that's the case, Anthony Brown's going to see the football coming his way a ton. So how does he handle that? So if he's getting peppered with targets because teams want to throw at Trevon Diggs, is he up for that task? Can he have a career year? And if he does, with, Trevon Diggs, and even let's go down this hypothetical route, where Diggs is more of what I think he'll get, 6 interceptions, but improved coverage player, he's still a really solid CB1. And then if you have Anthony Brown having a career year at CB2, I mean, that really opens up things that Dan Quinn can do. And he's already modified and tweaked his system from, what he was pretty much relying on that cover 3 ways in Atlanta, and even before that as the DC in Seattle. He started to tweak and change his philosophy and how he rolls out that defense. So if he gets some legit, I want to call it top tier, but there's not a whole lot of excellent cornerback duos out in the league. But if Anthony Brown has a career year and Trevon Diggs maybe doesn't have the interceptions but improves as a coverage player, I think you're looking at one of the better cornerback duos in the league. And if Dan Quinn gets something like that, that kind of opens up what he could do with the Micah Parsons and, some of the other players that they can use rushing the passer. And maybe if you have that improved coverage ability, maybe you don't need Micah Parsons always rushing the passer. Or maybe at a lower percentage, you can roll out of Sam Williams and say, hey, the coverage is good enough at the back end. He'll get there eventually. Or even Donta Fowler Jr. can get there despite all the money he's made in his career not necessarily being all that worth it. No disrespect, but that's kind of my thinking here. So I think if Anthony Brown's in for a career year, which some of the hype from training camp, which, take it with a grain of salt, but some of the hype is kind of leading me to think that it's possible. It's certainly in the cards. So if that happens with another really strong year from Trevon Diggs, that cornerback group is looking really, really good, and I can't wait to see what Dan Quinn does with that, both on the coverage aspect, but also what it allows him to do with rotating different guys and using different assets as edge rushers, maybe not having to rely on Micah Parsons as much. Moving on to games to watch, common thread here, it's pretty good opponents that I can't wait to see. Games to watch, I don't include division games, so no NFC East games here because obviously no repeat division winner since 2004 yeah, all those games matter because all 4 teams think they have a shot to win that division. Week 5 at the LA Rams, obviously a potential playoff preview, and 2 teams that we'll see how the divisions shake out. They could be fighting for seeding 1 through 4 if they both win their respective division, or they could be talking about playoff, 1 position to even get in. Or 2, just, who's going to be that number 1 wildcard seed, who's going to be the 6, who's going to be the 7, et cetera, et cetera. So also a fun matchup when it comes to the offenses. Like, probably not going to have Michael Gallup on the field here if he's still in the pup, but still, it's Dak Prescott, it's CeeDee Lamb, it's Tony Pollard, it's Zeke Elliott. It's that offensive line against the Rams, who just won the Super Bowl and have a high-powered offense. So must-see television, and this is a good test. How does, Trevon Diggs in coverage match up against an Allen Robinson, and especially considering he's going to be living out of the slot? How does Jordan Lewis handle the task of trying to slow down Cooper Kupp? Can't wait to see that. Then moving on, Week 10 at the Green Bay Packers. Again, potential playoff preview. Teams that could be fighting for seeding. Same things I talked about with the Rams. Offensive firepower left and right. All 3 of these games also road games. I think Dallas is a pretty good squad when they play at home, and being in the dome is a huge advantage, and they kind of have that advantage when playing out in LA. Even if the dome's not closed off, it's going to be good weather. Going to Green Bay Week 10, it's not totally end of the season, but it's starting to get a little chilly there in Lambeau. So, how does Dak handle that weather? What does the passing attack look like in Lambeau? I'm very fascinated to see that. And then Week 17 at the Tennessee Titans. There's a couple other games I could have included. Week 11, then I can't remember exactly who they're playing, but that was an intriguing matchup when I was looking at their schedule. Decided to do Week 17. It's a Thursday night game. It's their last primetime game on the schedule, unless they make the Washington Commanders game in Week 18 something on primetime. But as it stands right now, the last primetime game, and this could be a huge rhetoric type of game. And same thing with the Rams. Like, if the Cowboys take down the Rams in Week 5 or the Packers in Week 10, that's going to do a lot to change their public perception in the eyes of people like me. So this Titans game on primetime slot on Thursday Night Football has that similar gravitas and weight where it can change the rhetoric and change people's outlook, especially that late in the year going to the postseason. If that's their best game of the year, people are going to be big on the Cowboys. And you kind of saw it late last year where Cowboys have a big game against the Washington football team then on Sunday Night Football, and they big time showing against the Eagles backups in Week 18. People started to get a little hype on that, and then ultimately they fall short against the 49ers. Does something similar happen here? Because I think that's totally within the cards, or the other way around. Maybe the Cowboys get hot, look really good Week 17, and carry that momentum into the postseason. So I'm just interested to see what Dallas Cowboys team we see there on the big stage against the Tennessee Titans. And it's also one, talked about it a little bit earlier, Dallas has been looking for answers there on the interior of the defensive line, and especially if Parsons is going to be used as an edge. He's a pretty solid run defender, and he's got a great ability to shoot gaps with his athleticism. But if you're having to use him as an edge rusher, how does Leighton Vander Esch and Jabril Cox, on top of that interior defender, part of this Dallas roster, handle the rushing attack that a healthy Derrick Henry brings to the table, and the Tennessee Titans are going to try to shove down your throat? So really interesting matchup, and one where I could see the Titans running down the Cowboys, running through them on their way to a win. And, the Titans could certainly be playoff contenders too. So pretty solid, and both these teams, I think, regressed, at least on the offensive side for both sides, and I think Dallas took a step back defensively. So it's 2 teams maybe not as good as they were last year, but certainly fighting to stay in that playoff conversation. So they're similar but different in a lot of ways as well. All that to say, those are the games I'm looking forward to watch. That's going to do it for my Dallas Cowboys season preview. Tell me what you think about this squad down below in the comment section. How many wins do you think you can come away with? Who are some X factors, not superstars, but X factors? And what are some games you're looking forward to watching this team play? I respond to just about every comment, so let's talk about Dallas down below. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button and help me out a ton. And if you're new around here, want to see more of this series, more football content, just hit that big red subscribe button. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Teach, and I'm signing off.